Director stood before the massive in his office, watching the species prepare to dock at the consortium station. The human vessel was crude by galactic standards, its hull from what appeared to be inadequate shielding during faster-than-light travel. He felt a mixture of pity and mild curiosity as the ship slowly maneuvered into position. The Galactic Intelligence Consortium had existed for 3,000 years. 47 species contributed to its vast network of operatives, analysts, and systems. Between the telepaths who could read thoughts from across a room, the who moved through computer networks like ghosts, and the hive who shared information instantaneously across their entire species, the consortium knew everything worth knowing in the galaxy. No secret stayed hidden for long. No plot went undetected. Had reviewed humanity's application personally. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 20 years ago and had yet to establish a single colony beyond their home system. Their computing technology relied on silicon chips and electrical signals, methods the galaxy had abandoned ago in favor of quantum processing and neural networks. Most amusing of all, they possessed no psychic abilities whatsoever, not even basic telepathy or precognition. Their intelligence agencies had names that seemed designed to intimidate each other rather than galactic powers. The Central Intelligence Agency, the Secret Intelligence Service, the Ministry of State Security, organizations that spied on each other more than they spied on external threats. The consortium's analysts had laughed while reading the reports. These humans spent more resources watching their own kind than preparing for contact with advanced civilizations. The decision was unanimous. Humanity posed zero threat to galactic security. They could be granted conditional membership in the galactic community. It would take them centuries to become relevant if they ever did. In the meantime, they would provide an interesting study in primitive intelligence gathering. 6 months after the human embassy opened on station, the first anomaly occurred. 3 human culturals somehow acquired detailed information about consortium operations in the Orion sector. The data was sensitive but not catastrophic. Still, it should have been impossible for them to access. The consortium security protocols were layered and redundant. Even member species needed special clearance to view operational details. Ordered an investigation. The lead telepath, Moth Tender 3rd of 7, conducted personal scans of all 3. The humans sat calmly through the process, their minds open and oddly relaxed. Moth Tender reported back with confusion in his mental signature. "They are telling the truth," they said. "They claim they made friends with various station personnel at a drinking establishment. People simply told them things during casual conversation. Their memories support this completely. I sense no deception, no hidden training, no mental shields of any kind." Frowned. "That should be impossible. Our people are trained to recognize intelligence-gathering attempts. No consortium member would casually reveal operational details to strangers." Yet 3 separate individuals apparently did exactly that, Moth Tender replied. The humans seemed genuinely surprised that this information was considered sensitive. They thought they were simply making friends and learning about their neighbor's work. The matter was filed away as an embarrassing lapse in personnel security. A memo went out reminding all station workers about operational security. The 3 humans continued their duties, seemingly oblivious to the concern they had caused. A year later, the Hive attempted a standard infiltration operation against a human mining corporation in the asteroid belt. They specialized in such work. They could insert sleeper agents into any organization, their hive-mind connection allowing perfect coordination and information sharing. 16 had spent months establishing identities and gaining trust within the mining company's structure. The operation was exposed 3 hours before its culmination. Not just exposed, but completely dismantled. The human corporation had known about all 16 agents for at least 2 months. They had fed the false information the entire time, using the hive-mind connection against them. Once they inserted the corrupted data into their network, it spread to other operations. 17 separate intelligence initiatives collapsed within a day. The Queen demanded an emergency session. How had the humans detected her children? How had they identified all 16 agents when they themselves struggled to distinguish their own operatives from genuine corporate employees once deep cover was established? The human corporation, when questioned, provided recordings. Their head of security, a cheerful woman named Sarah Martinez, walked the consortium representatives through the detection process. She pointed out small behavioral inconsistencies. A worker who claimed to have attended a particular university but didn't recognize its fight song. Another who perfectly understood technical mining procedures but fumbled basic social interactions. A third who maintained an apartment in the residential district, but whose neighbors never actually saw them come or go. "We assumed you were corporate spies from a rival company at first," Martinez explained. "Then the patterns were too good, too coordinated. That's when we figured it was something bigger, probably you folks testing us." She smiled. "No hard feelings. We test each other all the time back home." The Queen was not satisfied. "These observations are trivial. We accounted for such details. Our agents were thoroughly prepared." Martinez shrugged. "Sure, but you prepared them for watching, right? We're different. We notice different things. Plus, we've been spying on each other for 10,000 years. You develop instincts." By the end of the second year, 19 separate intelligence failures had been documented. Every single one involved human targets or human proximity. The lost access to what they thought were secure networks. They found their telepaths getting confused and disoriented around human embassy staff. The shapeshifters, who could perfectly mimic any species they studied, were somehow identified within hours of attempting infiltration of human facilities. Initiated a full counterintelligence sweep. He assigned the consortium's best analysts to the human problem. Teams worked around the clock, examining every human on station, monitoring every communication to and from Earth, analyzing every interaction between humans and other species. They found nothing. No evidence of sophisticated technology, no hidden operatives, no secret training programs. The humans on the station were exactly what they claimed to be: diplomats, clerks, maintenance workers, bartenders, shop owners. Their communications with Earth were mundane: family messages, news updates, requests for specific foods that weren't available in station cuisine, entertainment media. Yet somehow, impossibly, classified consortium data was reaching Earth. Began to feel something he had not experienced in his 2 centuries of service: uncertainty. The humans were either the galaxy's greatest intelligence operatives, hiding capabilities that made the consortium look primitive, or they were genuinely innocent, and the consortium's entire network had somehow become compromised through pure coincidence. Neither explanation made sense. He reviewed the files again, searching for patterns. The humans on station numbered 47. Most worked in the embassy district. A few operated small businesses catering to the human population. 2 were journalists. 3 were graduate students studying galactic culture. None had backgrounds in intelligence work, at least not according to their records. Several had relatives who had worked for human intelligence agencies. But that was hardly surprising given how many such agencies humanity apparently needed. One detail caught his attention. Every human on the station consumed vast quantities of entertainment media from Earth: videos, books, games, interactive experiences. They gathered in groups to watch programs together. They discussed fictional stories with the same intensity that consortium analysts discussed real operations. Requested a sample of human entertainment. His assistant provided a selection of what humans called spy thrillers. He watched the first one with growing disbelief. The story followed a human agent who infiltrated an enemy organization by creating a completely false identity, maintaining it so thoroughly that even he began to believe it. The agent betrayed his own people, then revealed it was all an act. then suggested that perhaps the act had become real, leaving the audience uncertain what was truth and what was performance. The second program showed humans using seemingly innocent tools as weapons and hiding places. A pen that was actually a camera, a shoe with a secret compartment, a painting that concealed a safe. Every mundane object became potential. The third depicted something called social engineering, where an agent manipulated people into revealing secrets not through force or telepathy, but through simple conversation, by making people feel comfortable, understood, and eager to share. Watched 17 more programs over the next 3 days. Each one showed different methods of deception, surveillance, and information gathering. Some were crude, many were absurd, but the sheer variety was staggering. These weren't training materials. They were entertainment. Humans watched these for fun. He called an emergency session of the Inner Council. It was time to admit they had a problem they didn't understand. The galaxy's most advanced intelligence network was being systematically compromised by a species that had joined the galactic community less than 2 years ago. And nobody could figure out how they were doing it. Suspected the answer was in those entertainment programs somehow, but he couldn't see the connection. Not yet. The humans seemed to be playing a game the rest of the galaxy had never learned. A game they had been playing against each other for so long that they didn't even realize they were playing it. Whatever the truth was, one thing had become clear. The consortium had made a terrible mistake in dismissing humanity as primitive and harmless. They were something else entirely, something the galaxy had never encountered before. And they were winning a war that nobody else had even known was being fought. The Inner Council chamber existed in a pocket of folded space, accessible only through quantum-encrypted portals. It had been designed to be the most secure location in the galaxy. No signals could enter or leave. No recording devices could function. Even thoughts were shielded from telepathic eavesdropping. The chamber had hosted only 6 emergency sessions in its 400-year history. This was the 7th. Stood at the center as representatives from the galaxy's most powerful intelligence services materialized around him. The collective appeared as a shimmer of light and code, their consciousness distributed across quantum processors. Moth-Tender Third of 7 took form as a mass of delicate sensory tendrils, this true body safely hidden light-years away. The Scent Coordinator Vex, whose current form resembled a floating sphere of liquid metal. Others arrived one by one, each more advanced and formidable than most species could imagine. They were the galactic intelligence elite. Between them, they had toppled governments, prevented wars, and maintained the careful balance of power that kept the galaxy stable. They had never failed at anything that mattered. Until now. Explain the impossibility, Ha demanded, their voice synthesized from pure mathematics. Our networks operate on quantum entanglement. Human computers use electricity and silicon. They cannot interface with our systems. They cannot even detect our communications. Yet somehow they have not only intercepted our data but inserted false intelligence into our networks. 3 of our major operations were based on fabricated information that appeared to originate from our own scouts. Pulled up the incident reports. The evidence was damning. They had planned a complex operation to gather intelligence on human military capabilities. The operation had been based on reconnaissance data that showed human warships were poorly shielded and vulnerable to certain types of energy weapons. They had adjusted their defensive postures and strategic planning accordingly. Then a human military exercise had revealed that their ships were actually extremely well shielded against exactly those weapons. The reconnaissance data had been completely wrong. Analysis proved the data had indeed come through channels, using proper encryption and authentication. But it had been fabricated. Someone had fed lies into what should have been in system. We confirmed the same phenomenon, Moth-Tender said, their mental voice tight with distress. Our telepaths have scanned the human embassy staff 47 times. Each scan confirms they are exactly what they claim to be. Low-level diplomats, clerks, maintenance workers. None possess the mental architecture for deception against trained. Yet classified data continues to flow to Earth. Coordinator Vex shifted their liquid form into something resembling agreement. The attempted infiltration of the human delegation on station. We inserted 3 of our finest operatives, each one perfectly disguised. All 3 were identified within 6 hours. The humans somehow knew they were, despite our operatives being physically and genetically identical to the individuals they replaced. How? Demanded Ha. How did they detect shapeshifters that have fooled quantum scanners and telepathic probes? They asked questions, Vex said simply, personal questions. What was your mother's favorite food? What did you do on your 10th birthday? What was the name of your childhood pet? Our operatives answered correctly based on their research, but apparently the humans detected something in how they answered. They called it affect. The emotional resonance was wrong. Felt the weight of their combined confusion and frustration. These were the galaxy's apex predators in the intelligence arena. They had capabilities that would seem like magic to most civilizations. Yet they were being outmaneuvered by a species that still used paper documents and couldn't even read minds. An analyst approached the council, her antennae trembling with what recognized as excitement mixed with fear. She was young for her position, barely 200 years old, but she had requested this audience specifically. He had granted it because, at this point, any insight was valuable. "Honored Council," she began, her voice modulated through the chamber's translation systems. "I believe I have found an explanation. It is not one we will find comfortable." "Speak," commanded. The analyst activated a holographic display. Images from human entertainment media filled the chamber. Scenes from what humans called movies, television programs, novels, and games. Thousands upon thousands of them, spanning centuries of human culture. "They have been training for this their entire history," she said. "Every technique we have documented, every human breach, every failure of our systems, all of it has appeared in their fiction decades or centuries before they made contact with us." She showed a clip from a human program created 50 years before first contact. In it, a human agent created a completely false identity, living as someone else so thoroughly that even sophisticated interrogation could not break the cover. The key, the fictional agent explained, was to believe the lie completely, to make the false identity so real that it became a part of you. The telepaths find no deception in human minds because there is no deception to find, the analyst continued. They are genuinely who they claim to be, but they are also trained from childhood through cultural immersion in the art of maintaining multiple truths simultaneously. Another clip showed a human using something called social engineering. The agent in the story approached a target and simply talked to them, made them comfortable, asked questions that seemed innocent, got the target to reveal sensitive information willingly without ever realizing they were being manipulated. "We evolved in environments where deception was unnecessary or impossible," the analyst said. "They cannot lie to each other telepathically. They share thoughts through their hive mind. They exist in networks of pure information where falsehood is simply corrupt data to be corrected. We developed intelligence services to counter external threats, but we never needed to deceive each other." She pulled up historical records from Earth, wars fought with spies and double agents, companies stealing secrets from competitors, criminals evading police through elaborate schemes, politicians manipulating public opinion, religious organizations hiding corruption, families keeping secrets from each other. "Humans develop their intelligence capabilities to counter each other," the analyst explained. "Creatures just as paranoid, creative, and deceptive as themselves. They have spent 10,000 years playing games of deception against opponents who knew they were being deceived and were actively trying to catch them. They have refined their methods through thousands of scenarios, tested in the most hostile environment imaginable." Ha's form flickered with what might have been anger or fear. You are saying they have been preparing for galactic espionage for? No, Honored One. They were preparing to spy on each other. We are simply easier targets. We are not adapted to deal with their level of strategic deception because we never needed to develop such adaptations. A human clerk has consumed more counterintelligence theory through entertainment than our trained agents receive in formal education. The chamber fell silent as the council absorbed this, felt something cold settling into his core. The implications were staggering. "Show us more," he commanded. The analyst. She showed human stories about hiding messages in plain sight, about creating codes that looked like innocent correspondence, about using children's toys as signaling devices, about dead drops and brush passes and 1,000 other techniques for moving information without detection. She showed humans creating false identities, so convincing that background checks turned up complete life histories. Humans manipulating security systems not through hacking, but through understanding and exploiting human psychology. Humans turning loyal agents into double agents through appeals to emotion, ideology, or simple greed. Every technique exists in their fiction first, the analyst said. They imagine every possible method of espionage and counterintelligence. They explore it in their stories. They debate it. They refine it. By the time they need to use it in reality, they have already tested it 1,000,000 times in simulation. Mothtender's mental voice was shaken. Then every human is potentially an operative. They are all trained from birth through cultural immersion. They all understand at an instinctive level. Worse than that, the analyst said. They do not think of it as, it is simply how they interact with each other. Deception is so woven into their social fabric that they do not even recognize they are doing it. When we scan them and find genuine innocence, it is because they genuinely do not realize they are gathering intelligence. They think they are just being friendly, just asking innocent questions, just learning about their neighbors. Ordered an immediate audit of all consortium operations that had any human contact whatsoever. The results arrived over the next week, and each report was worse than the last. The humans had mapped 73% of the consortium's network structure. They had identified 84% of active operatives. They had compromised 41% of ongoing operations. They had penetrated security protocols that had stood unbreached for centuries. And they had done it all without deploying a single official intelligence officer. The 47 humans on station included no one from Earth's intelligence agencies. They were all civilians, normal people, people who thought they were just living their lives and making friends in their new galactic neighborhood. "What do we do?" Coordinator Vex asked. Their liquid form had collapsed into a shape that suggested defeat. Had no answer. How did you defend against an adversary who didn't know they were your adversary? How did you secure your networks against a species for whom information gathering was as natural as breathing? How did you trust anything when humans could lie with complete sincerity, believing their own deceptions? "We need to understand them better," he said finally. "We need to learn their methods, study their fiction, understand how they think about deception and intelligence." "That could take decades," Ha objected. "Yes," agreed. "And in those decades they will become even more entrenched in our systems. But I see no alternative. We cannot fight an enemy we do not understand." The council debated for hours, but in the end, they reached no satisfactory conclusion. They implemented new security measures, but all of them felt inadequate against an adversary who operated on principles the galaxy had never encountered. As the meeting concluded and the representatives began to depart, the analyst approached privately. "Director," she said quietly, "there is one more thing, something I did not wish to mention before the full council." "What is it?" "In my research, I found references to human intelligence agencies operating against each other, the Americans spying on the British, the Chinese infiltrating Russian networks, the Israelis watching the French. They do not trust each other any more than they trust us. I fail to see how that helps us. It means they are not united. They are not working together. If humanity ever did decide to truly focus their intelligence capabilities on the galaxy, if they stopped watching each other and turned their full attention to us. She trailed off, her antennae drooping. Understood. What they were experiencing now was just humanity being humanity. Curious, social, naturally inclined toward information gathering. It was not even a coordinated effort. It was just their default mode of interaction. If they ever became truly hostile, if Earth's intelligence agencies brought their full capabilities to bear against the galactic community, the consortium would not stand a chance. He dismissed the analyst and stood alone in the empty chamber, feeling the weight of 3,000 years of institutional pride crumbling around him. The Galactic Intelligence Consortium had just learned that in a galaxy of telepaths, hive minds, and quantum computers, the most dangerous intelligence operatives were the ones who had spent learning to lie to themselves. Pushed her cleaning cart down the corridor of Deck 7, humming softly to herself. The station's night cycle had begun an hour ago, and most of the offices were empty. She preferred working these hours. Fewer people around meant less interruption, and she could work at her own pace. The consortium station was fascinating. Had spent 18 months cleaning its offices and corridors, and she still discovered new things every day. The architecture alone was worth the trip from Earth. Smooth, organic curves that the favored merged seamlessly with the geometric precision the preferred. Lighting that adjusted to each species' visual spectrum. Temperature zones that accommodated beings from ice worlds and lava planets alike. She reached the executive level and paused at the intersection. The layout here still confused her sometimes. The consortium had designed this section with security in mind, and the corridors didn't follow intuitive patterns. She consulted the map on her, then took the left passage. Halfway down the corridor, she realized her mistake. This was the restricted area. She had missed her turn, stopped, frowning at her. The map showed she should have gone right at the last intersection. These late nights always made her a bit scattered. "Excuse me," a voice said behind her, sharp and authoritative. "This is a restricted area." Turned to find a security guard, their liquid metal form coalesced into something vaguely humanoid. She felt her face flush with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. I got turned around. I was looking for the bathroom." The guard's optical sensors focused on her. "Please remain where you are. I need to verify your credentials." "Of course," said, fumbling for her ID badge. "I've been working here for over a year. The layout up here is confusing. I thought the restrooms were this way." The guard scanned her badge, then scanned her biometrics, stood patiently, feeling foolish. This was the second time this month she had gotten lost. The station was just so big, and the executive level particularly maze-like. "Your credentials are valid," the guard said after a moment, "but please be more careful. This area contains sensitive facilities. The nearest restroom is back the way you came, then right at the intersection, third door on the left." "Thank you," said gratefully. "I'll make sure to pay more attention." The guard escorted her back to the intersection, watching as she headed in the correct direction. Found the restroom, used it, then returned to her assigned section to continue cleaning. The whole incident had taken maybe 90 seconds. She put it out of her mind and focused on her work. 6 hours later, on 3 different planets, consortium operations began to collapse. The first was an intelligence-gathering mission in the system. Agents who had spent years establishing cover identities suddenly found their communications compromised. Their handlers received messages that seemed authentic but contained subtle errors. Operations were blown. Assets were exposed. The second was a counterespionage initiative tracking potential insurgent movements in the sectors. The entire operations database was corrupted. Years of collected intelligence became a mixture of truth and fiction. impossible to untangle without starting from scratch. The third was a surveillance network monitoring diplomatic communications between the Empire and the Federation. The network's logs showed normal operation, but analysts realized they were being fed fabricated data. The real communications were being routed elsewhere, invisible to consortium monitoring. All three breaches traced back to a single point of failure. Someone had physically accessed a secure terminal on Deck 7 of Station and installed a data bridge. The bridge was sophisticated, designed to appear as a legitimate system process. It had been in place for approximately 6 hours before being discovered. The access point was in the restricted area where it had been found. Reviewed the security footage personally. It showed everything clearly. Standing in the corridor looking confused, the guard approaching and questioning her. The 90-second interaction, being escorted back to the public area. The timestamp showed 23:17 station time. The terminal had been accessed at 23:18, while the guard was distracted with, but had never approached the terminal. The footage was continuous. She had stood in one place, apologetic and embarrassed until escorted away. She had not touched anything. She had not accessed any systems. Ordered a complete investigation. Every second of footage was analyzed. Every person who had been on Deck 7 that night was questioned. The telepaths conducted deep scans of everyone involved, including herself. Her mind was an open book. She really had gotten lost. She really had been looking for a bathroom. She felt embarrassed about the incident but wasn't overly concerned. She liked her job and wanted to make sure she hadn't gotten in trouble. Her memories matched the footage exactly. She was telling the complete truth. The breakthrough came from a junior analyst reviewing personnel records. The guard who had confronted was named Vextow. They had been employed by Consortium Security for 3 years. Excellent record, multiple commendations, no red flags of any kind. Vextow had also been on duty during 4 other unexplained security incidents over the past 18 months. Minor things: a door left unlocked, a patrol route accidentally skipped, a security camera experiencing brief technical difficulties. Each incident had seemed innocuous at the time. They brought Vextow in for interrogation. The telepath probe was invasive, thorough, designed to extract every secret. Vextow did not resist. Their liquid metal form remained calm throughout. The truth was worse than anyone had imagined. Vextow was not. They were human. Not in biology, obviously, but in training and allegiance. Vextow had been recruited by a human intelligence contractor 3 years ago. The human organization had provided training, techniques, and payment. In return, Vextow had slowly and carefully compromised consortium security from the inside. But you are, Moth Tender insisted during the interrogation. We scanned your genetic structure, your quantum signature. You are not human. I know, Vextow replied easily. I am, but I work for humans. They pay better. You betrayed your own people. Not really. I never worked for the government. I joined Consortium Security for the steady employment. When the humans approached me with a better offer, I took it. It is simply business. The interrogation revealed more details. Vextow was not working for Earth's government. They were contracted to a private human intelligence firm based on Mars. The firm sold information to various clients, corporations, criminal organizations, wealthy individuals, and sometimes governments. Vextow had been one of 17 operatives the firm had placed in consortium facilities across the galaxy. 17, felt dizzy. How many human intelligence operations have infiltrated the consortium? I do not know, Vextow said. My firm has 17 operatives, but there are dozens of other human firms operating in the same space. Then there are the actual government agencies, which do not coordinate with private contractors, and the criminal syndicates, which are even more secretive. The Luna crime syndicates, Vextow continued conversationally, have between 20 and 40 operatives in consortium facilities, depending on who you ask. Nobody knows for sure. That is kind of their whole thing. They are very good at this. Mothtender's mental voice was tinged with disbelief. You are telling us that humans have infiltrated the Galactic Intelligence Consortium not as a unified species effort, but as independent operations by corporations, criminals, and political factions. Yes, Earth's governments probably have their own operatives too, but they do not share information with private contractors. Humans compete with each other more than they cooperate. Makes us harder to root out. Vextal paused. Makes them harder to root out, I should say. I am. The realization hit like a physical blow. The humans were not operating as a unified intelligence service. They were competing with each other. Multiple organizations, all pursuing their own agendas, all infiltrating the same targets independently. Some cooperated occasionally. Most operated in isolation. A few actively worked against each other. And somehow, this chaotic mess was more effective than the consortium's coordinated, organized, 3,000-year-old intelligence apparatus. Ordered a complete audit. Every consortium facility was examined. Every employee was questioned. The telepaths worked around the clock, conducting scan after scan. The analyzed data flows and network traffic. The security forces investigated anyone who had displayed unusual behavior. The results were catastrophic. Human operatives had thoroughly penetrated every major intelligence service in the galaxy. Not just the consortium, but its member services as well. The telepathic core had at least 6 humans employed in support roles who had been feeding information to Earth for years. The quantum networks had been compromised by a janitor who had figured out how to physically access their nodes. The Hive had 14 human-sympathizing members who traded information for human entertainment media and luxury goods. They had done it not through superior technology or advanced capabilities, but through social engineering, patience, and an almost instinctive understanding of how to exploit trust. They asked questions that seemed innocent. They made friends. They listened. They noticed patterns. They slowly, carefully, built networks of information that gave them a comprehensive picture of galactic intelligence operations. And they had done it while competing with each other for the same intelligence. The final report landed on his desk 3 months after his wrong turn. He read it in his private office, feeling the weight of failure crushing down on him. The Galactic Intelligence Consortium could not be salvaged. Too many operations compromised. Too many agents exposed. Too many systems corrupted. The humans had not attacked them. They had not declared war. They had simply done what humans did naturally, gathered information, made connections, and exploited opportunities. They had approached the galaxy's intelligence services the same way they approached everything else, with curiosity, creativity, and a complete lack of awareness that they were doing anything unusual. Submitted his resignation the next day. The consortium dissolved 6 months later. Its member services were too compromised to continue operations. The methods and techniques that had worked for 3,000 years were suddenly obsolete. The reformed security collective was founded on a new principle. If you could not beat humanity's intelligence apparatus, you recruited them to help protect you from other humans. The galactic community hired human consultants. They studied human methods. They tried to adapt human techniques to their own capabilities. It did not work particularly well. You could not teach telepaths to lie convincingly. You could not make hive minds paranoid. You could not get quantum computers to think like social predators, but it was better than nothing. Retired to his and watched from a distance as humanity took its place as the galaxy's premier intelligence service. Not through force or technological supremacy, but because they had spent 10,000 years mastering a skill every other species had considered unnecessary. The art of lying to creatures who knew you were lying. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in a small apartment on station, enjoyed her retirement bonus. She had decided to leave station life and return to Earth. The consortium had given her a generous severance package, thanking her for her years of service. She was completely unaware that her accidental wrong turn had been the trigger for the greatest intelligence failure in galactic history. When friends asked why she left her station job, she told them the pay was good, but the layout was confusing. She had gotten lost too many times and figured it was time to move on. It was the complete truth. Whether anyone believed her was their problem.